Good evening and welcome back to the Collegiate iRacing League, where tonight we bring you the penultimate round of our Formula College World Championship. Round 6, the Finger Lakes Grand Prix from the virtual Watkins Glen International. Our title fights in both the student and alumni divisions are coming to a close, and it would only make sense to come to Formula C's fastest, most unpredictable track for another round of racing. Welcome to Watkins Glen International, a track most historic and influential in American motorsports. Opened in 1957, this track hosted the Formula One United States Grand Prix in the 60s and 70s, and in the 80s, it turned its focus to being one of the new road races on the NASCAR Cup Series calendar and began hosting the IMSA 6 Hours of the Glen. And for the second time in Formula C history, will host our Finger Lakes GP, aptly named, for the Finger Lakes region nearby in upstate New York. This configuration of Watkins Glen that we're running tonight is 3.37 miles, 5.43 kilometers long. It contains 11 turns, 7 to the right, 4 to the left, and 4 sectors of high speeds, wide corners, and elevation changes for our drivers to navigate. A lap at Watkins Glen starts with a long downhill braking zone into Turn 1, our first major overtaking opportunity as you see there on screen. Then it's up the S's, turns 2, 3, 4, a 141-foot climb up the hill onto the back straightaway as you ride on board with the driver making their qualifying lap right now. Down the back straightaway where the draft will come into play for the first time. You'll also notice that this configuration lacks the esteemed bus stop on the backstretch, meaning our drivers will be topping 150 miles an hour going into Turn 5, the carousel. Watch for overtakes on the backstretch thanks to the draft. This hard-banked right-hander will dump the drivers into the chute to begin the aptly named boot sector of the course. Through the downhill left-hander, Turn 6, down this short straight, making the top of the boot, and into Turn 7, the toe, which is our second major overtaking opportunity. The drivers will begin climbing the hill once again down I guess you could call this the sole of the boot, into Turn 8, our third major overtaking opportunity. Right here on screen, riding along with Andrew Williams through this lap. You can see a long, slow right-hander, then to this final chute into Turn 9, the slowest corner on the track thanks to its off-camber, where they exit the boot and return onto the main course. And then a flat-out Turn 10 will set them up for the final corner, Turn 11, where they'll cross the stripe and do it all again. Josh, we saw last season the chaos that happened here at this track last time we came here, as well as some surprise podium finishers and some interesting results in both of our sprint races.
Yeah, it was, and there's definitely excitement all around. I think you mentioned it, that just about every corner at this track is a passing zone and passing opportunity for these drivers. And so things to watch tonight are going to be the start of both races down into Turn 1. It can be really tricky for drivers to negotiate as they try to fan out 3 and 4 wide, and then there's really about 2 lines, maybe 2.5 lines through Turn 1, but we may see some 3 wide into Turn 1 tonight. I doubt that we'll see 3 wide exiting Turn 1. And as these drivers try and negotiate that, sure, they have to go up and down. A lot of these elevation changes, and then they want to keep the draft and the slipstream as well. That's going to be something that these drivers are paying attention to. Really balanced setup, I think, tonight on these cars for these drivers with their fixed setup. So it's going to be drivers that have an ability and have a confidence to use their car well, to place it where they want. That's what we expect anyways. And so that translates to more on-track action, more passing, and it's going to be some aggression from drivers. Typically, we see that saved for the second heat, or the second half of the second heat of the night. And Zach, I would wager that we'll see a little bit more throughout the evening battling, and we will have to keep as well an eye on that 10th place finish in the first heat. That will be your pole sitter for the second heat.
That's right. We have 2 sprint races here in Formula C. If you're new to the show, if this is your first race, 2 sprint races, about 20 minutes each. I believe they are 12 laps here at Watkins Glen. But at the end of sprint race 1, the top 10 finishers, the drivers who score points, will be inverted for sprint race 2. So like Josh said, if you finish 10th in sprint race 1, you are the pole sitter for sprint race number 2. But if you finish first in sprint race number 1, yeah, congratulations, you get big points for the win. But you have to start in 10th and navigate your way up through the field, which surely will be not a very easy task at a track like this where well over 60% of the lap is on throttle, and the draft is so critical here. But you mentioned we're not going to see a lot of 3 wide coming out of turn 1 out of some of these corners, but you're certainly going to see 3, maybe even 4 wide down this incredibly long backstretch where the draft is so important. And like I said in our little tour guide before the show, look for some overtakes down the backstretch before you even get to turn 5, because it is so strong in these F4 cars. There's basically no wing on any part of the car here, front or back. These are just straight planed for as much speed as possible around this track, and it's going to generate some great racing as we're riding on board with Nick Stockner trying to use the toe to his advantage on his qualifying lap. Dips the tires just a little bit in the grass and is going to lose control of the car, going hard into the inside wall. He's going to have to take that back down pit road as we're approaching as we've just passed 7 minutes complete in this qualifying session out of 12 minutes right now. Muhammad Alif is the guy to watch. He sits on pole by almost 0.8 of a second. Actually scratched that just under 0.7 of a second, or just under 0.8 of a second. But there is a certain condition tonight where Muhammad Alif can clinch the student championship. Just a look at your points on the student side. Alif has a flat 200 points, and then it is an 80-point gap to his Ball State teammate CiL Davidson. So, if Alif wins a race and finishes at least second in another, and Davidson scores less than 20 points, which will trigger the drop week clause for Davidson, then Alif will clinch the title. So Davidson has to have a bad day, and Alif has to have a near perfect day to clinch the title. But Josh, it is possible tonight.
Yeah, it's possible. We'll see what happens. Ball State is going to have contenders as well, because they've got on the track to deal with. Wisconsin's Ted Burns is going to be with us tonight. He's going to be in that white and red machine, as well as Nick Daly going to be in that bright blue Texas at Arlington machine. Another special entry from Texas at Arlington tonight is going to be John Price, a name that some long-term viewers may have heard from seasons previous. However, it looks like John, I saw on my second monitor that he has a new consequence. He'll be starting from the pit road for impeding the lap of another driver. Probably a discretion in braking distances. I suppose he could make an argument that the driver ahead impeded his lap as well. I was kind of watching that for a couple laps, and it was a little bit awkward, but I think that, Zach, that's what we're going to see tonight. Is this track is very focused on the draft. That's very important to your speed around here, and there are going to be drivers who pull out late, pull out early. That's going to have to be one of the games that they play. But yeah, no surprise right now. Muhammad Alif atop the scoring tower, and Nick Daly. Nick Daly was fastest in practice and is trying to do the same in this session currently, though he only got about 3 minutes to go. We talked about Ted Burns. He sits third currently on your screen, and then Ball State's CiL Davidson. Right there on your screen is Athena Leclerc with P5. Again, Zach, really improved. Leclerc has come to life second part of this season here, and going to have a nice lap if she keeps this toe on Austin DeLong, though now she's going to want that downforce that she doesn't have as she tries to go the long way around and enter the boot section, and that's where you really would like to have the track all to yourself. So we'll see how this lap stacks up, but that is your top 5 right now. St. Clair College is going to be in P5 at the moment.
Yeah, and these two drivers on your screen, DeLong and Leclerc, are going to just get across the stripe by the time the timer of qualifying ends. A little mistake right there from Leclerc coming out of the toe of the boot. But these two drivers are going to be able to set whatever lap time they're cooking on right now, as we're going to see a couple of other drivers come across the line just before these two. I saw Jason Wallet was able to improve on his lap time up into the 18th position. But I want to talk about this corner right here on track. This is arguably the hardest corner on track because if you look kind of towards the back, you can see the off camber. You go uphill when you're coming up that chute out of the heel, and then it goes completely flat when you're rejoining, I guess you could call it the NASCAR track. So drivers have to be very careful about applying throttle coming out of the corner because if too much throttle and that car can loop around on you. As you see Austin DeLong in green for a second there, he was able to improve on his time for the Penn College of Technology. He jumps up to the provisional 12th position as time's running out in qualifying, Josh.
Yeah, the clock is ticking. You can see IUPUI trying to put in their final lap. Cohen Evans right there. He's going to try and get his money worth on that corner. And yeah, Zach, you mentioned that corner is going to be the spot for a lot of excitement tonight. And that's going to be one where the curb tries and upsets these low set, kind of finicky F4 cars tonight. And so, yeah, we are getting to the end as these scores and drivers will complete their laps as well. But I think that's something that we can look forward to tonight. It will be up to the drivers for sure as we rush down into turn one, who would like to behave, and then as we go right to the S's. Again, the S's are pretty thin. There's not a lot of cars. These F4 cars, luckily, not as wide as some of the NASCAR Next Gen cars that we've seen here previously. But Zach, it looks like it's time for the grid.
Yes, our grid is official. Excuse me. For tonight's Finger Lakes Grand Prix Sprint Race 1, our Muhammad Alif from Ball State University, unsurprisingly, takes pole position for race number 1. His title, well, not title rival, but they've been going back and forth on track. Nick Daly from the University of Texas Arlington will start second. Ted Burns returns to the CIL and will start third for the University of Madison, Wisconsin. Cale Davidson will start fourth, our Muhammad Alif's teammate. So look for Davidson to play some defense on the rest of the grid behind. Athena LeClaire for St. Clair College will start fifth. Cohen Evans in that black and gold IUPUI machine rolls off sixth. Row 4, Lucas Santos from Minnesota Twin Cities makes his return to the CIL as well tonight. Andrew Williams from Clemson University starts 8th. Christian Hill from Mount St. Mary's starts 9th. Andrew Burrell, also from Clemson, will start 10th. Dan Banner, the head of that St. Clair College Saints iRacing Academy program, try saying that five times over, will start 11th. Austin DeLong from the Penn College of Technology starts 12th. John Price, making his return, will start 13th. Nick Stockner from Clemson starts 14th. Matt Stowecki from James Madison University rolls off 15th. Tyler Klingensmith from Robert Morris starts 16th. In row 9, Alex Diamond from Drexel University will start 17th. Nick Patinella from Robert Morris rolls off 18th. And in row 10, Michael Tognati will start 19th. Jason Wallet from Drexel starts 20th. And Ishan Basine from Beloit College will take that 21st grid position. And Josh, we are about ready to go. I think the lights are on. These drivers got the engines roaring. Hearts racing. We're ready to go racing at Watkins Glen Raceway. And it's lights out and the drivers are off. Barney throws the green. We're racing at Watkins Glen. Our Muhammad Alif gets a great start. Nick Daly establishes himself to his outside, but falls in right behind his Cale Davidson. Now under attack from Ted Burns on the inside of turn 1. Are we going to get through cleanly? Looks like everybody's going to make it through turn 1. That's quite surprising. And we're single file up at the front of the field. Our Muhammad Alif pulls out to a little bit of a lead over Nick Daly. But these two drivers right here, Cale Davidson and Ted Burns, nose to tail coming through the S's as we've got more action back through the field. That's Athena LeClaire, Cohen Evans, and Drew Williams nose to tail. We're going to see how this draft comes into play down the back straightaway for the first time. Here's Williams looking underneath the two cars ahead of him, and I believe Ted Burns is going to try and make a move for that third position. Look at that, side by side, one underneath the other. Will they settle out by the time they come out of the corner? At least those three will. But Ted Burns, I think, has gotten away with that third position off the start.
Yeah, it's a Formula College start, no doubt. Quite a delightful one with everybody making it through. And you can see your running order: Alif, Daly, Burns. Ted Burns wasting no time putting that Wisconsin livery up in the third position. He'll set his sights forward. Shades of Laguna, Zach, that we remember. Nick Daly, Alif, as well as Chris Preston, who's not with us tonight, and Ted Burns, all going into that final corner together. But it's going to be hard racing at the front. It's going to be hard racing in the middle of the pack. You can see that Minnesota machine trying to move around and find a window. You can see a bit wide, Robert Morris University. That's Nick Patinella. And will it leave a door open for Penn College of Technology? I think he's probably waiting to make his move when that 22 machine gets to the front stretch, and that's going to be an opportunity for all of these drivers. Right now, Patinella, eyes out the windshield. Big trouble, hit in the wall. That will be a car to avoid. Kept the speed quite well, but yeah, that's going to be +1 for Nick Patinella and Robert Morris University and the balance of the field here.
Great action going into turn one. It looks like Dan Banner not able to get the car slowed down as much as he wanted for turn one. Very, very hard braking zone into that corner, and of course downhill as well. So a lot of stress on the brakes, but he was able to get that car going as we saw that battle develop just behind. Now here's Coe and Evans looking to the outside of Drew Williams, or rather to the left side of Williams, going down the back straightaway, trying to use all the draft he can find to pull in front of that Clemson 23 machine. But Williams uses that low side and will prevail, as now Evans and IUPUI fall victim to Lucas Santos now in that 05 machine. Going to try and use that outside lane with Drew Williams using that toe through the corner. But you do have to be careful. You love being right up behind a car down a straightaway, but through the corners, that takes all the downforce off your front wing and makes the car very, very hard to drive. As Evans and Santos are still side by side through the sole of the boot. Williams has made off with both of those positions, and now he's got double duty to try and block both of these drivers behind him. No track limits on the exit of the heel. You can see a lot of drivers running it wide off of that corner into the asphalt runoff area, but surprisingly, there's no track limits warnings there, so you can use that to your advantage, as now Nick Daly has a rear view mirror full of Ted Burns from Madison, Wisconsin, trying to overtake UT Arlington for that second position. Maybe going to have a look down the front straightaway, gets the run with the draft. Here's Ted Burns looking to the inside as we have a spinner. That's a Clemson car that's gone around. I think that's Nick Stockner as we see him tumbling down the order. But doesn't look like Ted Burns was able to get to move the stick down the front straightaway. He's going to line him up and try again as he tries to keep Cale Davidson behind.
And yeah, Nick Daly right here pulls out. Very late to pull out right there. You have to do it that way to keep your momentum. And now 2 cars on the inside, 2 cars on the outside. Ted Burns trying to decide who he's going to partner with going into this long sweeping turn. Tires really working to find grip through this part of the course, and now Nick Daly's in a good position on the inside. How defensive is he going to be with Ball State? Looks like everybody's playing quite nicely up to this point. Don't think he was clear right there, and now the 12 car has an opportunity to come back. Our Muhammad Alif on the inside is going to do his best to get a drive off that corner. Nick Daly's going to keep his momentum on the outside, and you can see these 2 cars side by side. Looks like Nick Daly, a slight advantage. He's going to pull ahead. He's going to be clear into this turn, and can Wisconsin be opportunistic? No, not at this time. And so those Ball State cars relegated to position 3 and 4. New leader is going to be Texas at Arlington, followed by Ted Burns in that Wisconsin car.
Not sure what happened to our Muhammad Alif, but he dropped from first all the way to third, and now he's back working with his teammate Cale Davidson just behind. As these two, Nick Daly looking out the front of Ted Burns' machine, going to try and go to work on this UT Arlington machine down the front straightaway again. Couldn't get the pass complete on Nick Daly that time, but he did get it done on our Muhammad Alif, who I think made a critical mistake. Going into turn 5, he left the door open for both of those drivers to sneak their way through on the inside of turn 6, which gave both of them that position. But no doubt that Alif can work his way back up to the front of this field to take the point once again. Here's Ted Burns looking at the back of Nick Daly going down the back straightaway. Look at this difference in pace. Here he moves to the right side of Daly to try and secure the inside line for turn 5. However, our Muhammad Alif is going to make it 3 wide going down the back straightaway. He backs out of it at the last second. Smart move as Ted Burns is able to get the move done into turn 5, and he is your new leader in Watkins Glen.
Yeah, that Wisconsin car had shown a lot of confidence and a lot of grip leading up to that. And yeah, that pass was set up probably about a half lap before it happened. And really not much in the way of defense that Nick Daly could have done with that Texas at Arlington machine on that long Watkins Glen straightaway. But nonetheless, now they go down into the third sector of the course, and those Ball State cars still applying pressure. And this is quite the race for the lead that we expected. As we can see, Athena Leclerc trying to get back to the inside of Cohen Evans. That is for the 7th position right there. So those drivers trying to get it worked out, and it looks like Leclerc not coming out on top of that corner. And so the SCC car will be relegated back there. That's going to be P8. And we see Christian Bryant Hill from Mount St. Mary's. He's going to be trying to see if he can sneak by that St. Clair car, that 61 machine. Pretty good run off the corner. He'll have a little bit of tow here. And even if he does not get the job done into turn 1, he's got the ability to wait till the straightaway. But it looks like down a little bit of defense. Was it moving under braking from Leclerc? Don't think so, but now through the S's, he actually is a little bit too close, in my opinion. As we go back to the front here, these are the leaders, the University of Wisconsin, still trying to defend the lead at this point.
1, 2, 3 in a train. Burns, Daly, Alif, as Daly is going to step out from behind Ted Burns. Muhammad Alif once again makes it 3 wide. It's a dead heat going into turn 5, but Alif once again making the smart decision to tap the brakes just a bit and try and work on a better exit than these two drivers side by side. And that turn 5 is really interesting. You can see in our camera shots just how banked that corner is, about anywhere from 10 to 12 degrees of banking in that corner. So very, very steep for these drivers to deal with, but that means that there's technically 2 racing lines in that corner. You've got the very bottom that works, but also about halfway up the lane, you can seat the car and have a lot of momentum coming out of the corner to try and make a move into the boot. But now these two drivers still side by side. It's Ted Burns and Nick Daly, and now the two Ball State teammates got side by side for a little bit right there. Those two racing hard for that position, but Alif still on top. Possibly some team orders between the two, because Alif does have a championship on the line tonight, but the two ahead of him are racing for the Alumni Championship. Nick Daly, your current points leader on that end. Ted Burns has missed a few races because of his IRL racing career, but he's going to try and put together a string of good finishes tonight to try and catch up to Daly as much as he can with only 2 Grand Prix left in the season. Actually, Nick Daly got out to a really solid lead down the front straightaway, but Ted Burns was able to use that draft, as I think Nick Daly got a little bit wiggly on the exit, went outside of track limits, but was able to reestablish himself back inside. And I think Ted Burns might have been caught off guard by that too. But look at this run that Ted Burns is going to get down the back straightaway. Look for him to jump out as soon as they come out of the corner. There he goes. He is now alongside Nick Daly for the lead. And it looks like Cale Davidson is going to go to the high side alongside with Burns. Same thing as usual. Here's Alif looking to make it 3 wide, but he's going to back out before the corner as Ted Burns now has the high line over Nick Daly. And those two are going to swap the lead for another time here on lap 6 of 12, halfway through this first sprint race.
Yeah, Nick Daly, the current leader at the moment. You can see these drivers, I don't think they're worried about the color on their hoop. These drivers signed up for a race. They want their money's worth. You can see that Wisconsin machine planted in that corner. It's such a fun corner as a driver. You power up. They give you a little bit of free real estate. You can see on the other side of the white line right there. And, yeah, big defensive right now from Texas at Arlington. And Ted Burns, he knows where to put that car, and really solid move. You know, Zach, what Alif is doing when he goes down, he's trying to put either car offline, out of position. Just something they're less comfortable with. And we've seen he's tried it a couple times going into that big sweeping turn 5, and a testament to the skill of P1 and P2 right now, mostly unfazed in that area. And got to call out again. Look at that margin for error. Very little on the corner of the final corner, the exit. These drivers are competing really hard, and they trust one another to be in control of their car. Such a fun part of watching these drivers race.
And that's the respect that these drivers up at the front of the field have for each other. We've heard it time and time again in their post-race interviews on the podium, that these drivers love racing with each other. They love the competition that they give each other. They love being able to get back out on track with each other. And being able to enjoy the respect that they give each other as well. Plenty of room to race. They're going to race each other clean, but they're going to put on some of the best racing in the field. As now our Muhammad Alif is able to get underneath Nick Daly coming out of turn 5. He's got the established position into the entrance of the boot, but it looks like he's going to yield that to Nick Daly as Alif went a little wide right there. I thought he was going to get into the grass, so scary moment for Alif as he's now going to let Nick Daly go as Daly turns his sights from his rear view mirror up to the car of Ted Burns up ahead.
Yeah,
did that
Ted
roll
Burns.
hoop say hi, Mom?
It does. That's been a Kale Davis special for a little while now. These 4 cars competing down into the 3rd sector of the course, very wide for some of these drivers, and getting a little bit spread out at that. Back through the tower, P about 5 through 10. There's a 5-car battle taking place. You can see it all in orange on your tower. Leading the way right now is Andrew Williams. And boy, if I'm Williams, I'd probably remove the mirrors from that machine. But you can see right there, look at that drain. That's what you need, Zach, in your mirror as you try and get these laps completed. He would love this race to conclude right now. Good finishing spot if it stands for the 23 car, but it's going to be Clemson right now, followed by Minnesota. And then you can see IUPUI and a really late move from St. Clair, but it sticks. Maybe IUPUI a little bit early on the brakes. And now actually Mount St. Mary's trying to move through side by side. Up the hill we go through the S's, and this is where everybody will have the drafting advantage. And back up at the lead, you can see down into turn 5, Zach.
Yep, these two side by side once again. It's been the same story for about the last 6 or 7 laps. Daly Burns side by side for the lead into turn 5 with Alif snooping down both of these drivers' spines, trying to get a move to work. But we're going to go single file once more as I'm taking a look at that battle that we were just focusing on. Here's Christian Hill side by side with Lucas Santos as Athena Leclerc has actually gotten around that entire pack as she's only got Drew Williams to knock off next. But Williams has pulled out to about a 0.6 of a second lead and another 0.5 back to Christian Hill from Athena Leclerc. So this battle may be wrapping up momentarily, but we're going to keep an eye on it as there's still some moves being made right there. Lucas Santos from Minnesota Twin Cities going to try to make the move stick on Mount St. Mary's U. Christian Hill couldn't get it to work as here's an aggressive move from Cohen Evans. Tried the switchback down the straightaway there, the chute to get back onto the NASCAR track, but that didn't work. I think he might have caught Santos off guard because he is still at the back bumper of that beautiful golden red machine.
Yeah, and Williams right there, he loves this in his mirror, but it's like shuffling a deck of cards for the 4 remaining cars. I think Minnesota was second in that pack for a while now, second to last. But Ted Burns has taken maybe a tactical choice to cool off those tires just a bit, and I can see Ball State has opted to do the same. Nobody giving up in any sense at the moment, but perhaps a short truce so that these drivers can have the maximum of their equipment for the remaining 3 or so laps. And yeah, with 3 to go here, the party begins again. Part 2. The 12 car to the outside. Ted Burns going to try and be in the middle. Not sure if anybody's backing out of this one. They kind of jump down into the bowl right there. You can see the 12 car moving through. Can he get to the outside of Ted Burns? That's where he wants to stay. He's going to be a little bit defensive. He's got a wing ahead right now. But Ted Burns hard on the gas. Yeah, I think Ted is going to clear right here and should be safe for at least another corner.
And now Davidson able to get by Alif. I've noticed that if you're on the outside of that downhill corner coming into the boot, you're not going to have a good time. That's where Muhammad Alif has lost all of his positions tonight from the pole back now down to 4th place, but still in striking distance of the lead. This is turning out to be a very strategic race, not necessarily that of pure driving skill and speed, but rather setting up the moves, being smart about how you want to make your moves and when to do them. We've seen these drivers 1, 2, 3, 4 nose to tail for most of the track, but until they get into these high-speed drafting zones where we see these overtakes happen to make the move stick into the corner, as we are going to come to 3 laps to go across the stripe this time now. Speak of the devil, here comes Ted Burns looking down the inside, maybe not going to get something mounted there. No attack from Ted Burns as he's going to slot right back in line And we start the dance once again up the S's.
Back up the S as we go. And what a bunch of resumes we have at the bunch of the field. Obviously, your leader, Nick Daly, with an autocross expert 5,000 I rating, and Wisconsin's Ted Burns, an IRL Formula Ford driver, successful one at that, and a skilled iRacer as well. Not much room, a bit of defense right there. Obviously, Alif being the Ray Hall Letterman scholar there for Ball State, and so absolutely three drivers at the top of their game, trying to use the maximum of their machines. There is not a tenth of a second to be had around this course. These drivers have found it all. Looking back, we have not forgot about the battle. St. Clair College continuing to have pace. Leclerc has tried to put that car on the inside of Clemson. Can she do it for the 5th position? She's got it currently. Clemson going to have a run off the corner, and looks like his best move is going to be to come back probably at the end of this lap. And this is where we see these drivers set up these passes. This will take about a sector to set up, but you can see Andrew Williams, he's going to pull in. And it looks like Minnesota trying not to give up that final slot in this pack. And Andrew Williams, Clemson University, those drivers will go into this turn, enter, re-enter the NASCAR track. And here's where his drafting zone is going to come up. Can Andrew Williams make the move back, the same move that Leclerc made last lap? Can Clemson come back across the line here, or even on that second sector, the same part of the track?
That field very spread out as we just went away from them, and looking up here towards the front, these guys are a little spread out as well. I think these are some of the biggest gaps that we've seen between these cars all night, but it's still Nick Daly out front. This is the penultimate lap, 11 of 12, 1 to go at the stripe this time by. But still Daly, Burns, Alif, and now Davidson has fallen away from the draft of this pack just a little bit, and we're going to start the dance once again. It's Alif in the middle, splitting the uprights between the two drivers, and there's contact. Nick Daly is going to go sideways, as well as Ted Burns, but all three of those drivers able to keep the cars straight. That was a rare mistake from Armahamed Alif and Ted Burns making contact, and Nick Daly almost got caught up in it, and that's going to take Burns to the lead. Daly secures P2 and is able to recover, and now Alif once again stuck on the outside of turn 6 going down into the boot, but he is able to retain that 3rd position, and we almost just saw some major drama between our front runners.
Yeah, Cale Davidson's eyes got really big right here. Going down the straight, everybody has draft, and yeah, this time maybe a little bit less likely to back out. You see Ted move just over, and Ted is trying to use the body language of that car to convey that he's not interested in opening that door right there. But yeah, all those drivers holding on to it, expertly done. Happens at this level sometimes. Now, coming to take the white flag is the University of Wisconsin, followed by Texas at Arlington, followed by not one but two Ball State cars.
Barney's going to have the white flag in hand atop that stand down the front straightaway. There he is, waving it with all of his force. It is Ted Burns over Nick Daly. Desperation mode for Daly and Alif as you see the draft trains behind moving in that second pack. Daly's going to try and get the better exit off of turn 1. Looks like he got maybe just a bit of an edge on Ted Burns, but that is going to be a huge advantage as he uses the draft up the hill through the S's one final time in sprint race number 1. Relegated to the outside of turn 4. Going to go to the outside, down the back straightaway. Ted Burns to the inside. Armahamed Alif coming in tow as well. But it doesn't look like he's in striking distance to make anything work. And now Daly has a fender, or rather a wing ahead going into turn 5. These two are side by side. This is the final lap of sprint race 1 at Watkins Glen. This is exactly what we were hoping to see between these drivers up at the front, side by side, battling for the lead. Nothing to give. All bets are off. The respect these drivers have is immense, but the gloves are off. We are racing for massive points, especially these two, Burns and Daly, for the Alumni Championship points. And now the little mistake right there by both drivers coming out of the tow, that's going to let Alif into the mix. Massive defensive block from Ted Burns, taking Daly all the way to the inside grass, as now Alif and Daly make contact. Cale Davidson's up in the air. Daly loses his rear wing, and Ted Burns is going to drive off from all of this, leaving Armahamed Alif in second place. And I'm sure the stewards are going to have a heyday looking at that incident. But For the time being, it is Ted Burns with a nose advantage over Nick Daly into the corner, and a mistake by Daly after contact. Ted Burns is going to come out of turn 11 for the final time in sprint race 1 and take the trophy for himself.
He will. These drivers are going to conclude. You can see coming across your line, Minnesota, Best, IUPUI, and there you can see Ball State involved in that incident. Finally, this is Nick Daly, and actually in 10th position, your pole sitter for all you Texas at Arlington fans is going to be the 0-10 of John Price in this next race. But here is the move, and I think Wisconsin was a little bit defensive, closed the door a little bit on this, possibly within his right to do so. But right here, great shot. You can see the University of Wisconsin really diving for that apex, leaving nothing for Texas at Arlington. You would do it on the last lap, Zach, but it'll be up to the stewards to decide. Wouldn't be surprised if that was a racing incident. You know, if I'm Ted Burns, I would execute that same move, because that's the trust that he had. Now, maybe a little bit less trust in heat number 2 in the feature race here in about 10 minutes, but nonetheless, that was some proper driving from all of those competitors.
Yeah, it looks like Nick Daly may have dipped a tire too low into the grass, and that's what caused the initial spin, and then a Leaf, just with nowhere to go behind him, for lack of a better term, finished the job, got his front wing underneath the rear end of Nick Daly, spun him around, and in the process, Cale Davidson, also with nowhere to go, made contact with Nick Daly. But little silver lining there for that UT Arlington machine, as I believe he brought it home 9th across the stripe for sprint race number 1, so he'll be on the front row for sprint race number 2 with a brand new car, as well as his teammate, I think.
That's correct. So the front row will be all blue for the Texas at Arlington crew coming up here. So these drivers getting ready to re-rack them and possibly feel their cars out again, maybe with all their downforce components this time.
And while we have a moment of quiet in the racing action, these drivers are going through a quick warm-up for sprint race number 2. Let's talk to your winner of sprint race number 1, Ted Burns from the University of Madison, Wisconsin. Ted, congratulations on another sprint race victory here in Formula C. And of course, we got to talk about the elephant in the room, the incident in the heel of the boot on that final lap. Take us through your perspective of that.
Yeah, I knew Nick was alongside me, and I saw him kind of falling back in the mirror, so I figured he was kind of backing out for the corner, so I turned in just a little bit sharper than I guess I should have, and I didn't quite have the clear call when I came in on him. So I think it's my bad for turning in on Nick there. So apologies to him for coming out of that with the short end of the stick. Wanted to be able to race him to the line. It was such a good fun battle the whole race with him and Muhammad out there. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Ted, congrats on the win in the first heat. Saw, especially down the backstretch there, a Leaf was able to stick his nose in. Was that just a tactic to disrupt what you and Daly were trying to do? Did it affect you guys at all?
Yeah, definitely getting his nose up in there. It was getting a little, hairy whether he was going to send it or not. But I think Nick and I were kind of playing both sides and trying to send him right down the crown in the center of the road, trying to slow him up a little bit, try and hurt his run. It seemed to flatten out once we got to the actual bus stop, so he'd speed up again right at the end of the straight, but never quite sent it in there super deep. So yeah, I guess it kept Nick and I up there, and I knew as long as we were side by side, he didn't have a chance at trying to get past. Because when I was sitting back there in third, it was the same way. You can look high, you can look low, you can look in the middle, but it's unless you have that massive run, there's just no getting past the two guys side by side. So I think Nick and I were kind of playing that same game, trying to be a little bit defensive, but also both of us wanting to go for the win.
Yeah, and certainly, and I think the heat will increase here as we go into the feature race. Congrats again, Ted, and best of luck coming up here.
Awesome, thanks you guys. It'll be interesting starting a little bit farther back.
And that was winner Zach Ted Burns from the University of Wisconsin. And you heard it, just the slightest misjudgment. We talked a little bit about the margin for error between the cars and the walls and the cars and the cars. And Yeah, last lap just ran out a little bit there, and so that was a bit unfortunate. But these drivers are getting ready, certainly to go. And you heard Ted say now he and Alif as well will have their work cut out for them as they try and march forward through the field.
Yeah, and once again, you heard the respect that these drivers have for each other. Ted Burns apologetic there, saying that he made the move when he shouldn't have. And that's class. That's pure class between these drivers to be able to know, when you're at fault for an incident, maybe when you should have given a little more space. So class act from Ted, racing his competitors clean, and maybe when he doesn't have the cleanest of racing, he admits to it when it's his fault. But we're not assigning blame here in the booth. That is ultimately the steward's call, which we will find out. We'll keep you all updated as we hear information from the stewards.
Yeah, I think as we get into these next series, it's going to be pretty tricky for these drivers to go ahead and negotiate each other. We're going to be negotiating the track, going to be negotiating all the different parts of the race that we just saw. So imagine what we just saw, multiply that by about 2 or 3. But yeah, I think the run down the backstretch is going to be the big one. And also, Zach, we were pretty fortunate with a 0x, first lap or a run down into the first turn up through the S's. I suspect it would be pretty tricky to do it twice in one evening. Therefore, I imagine some hearts will be broken as we barrel down into turn 1.
Don't jinx it just yet. We've got a barnstormer ready to go as we now look at your starting grid for sprint race number 2 of our Finger Lakes Grand Prix. It's a UT Arlington lockout of the first row as John Price and Nick Daly will start on the front row. Cale Davidson from Ball State will start third. Cohen Evans from IUPUI fourth. Lucas Santos from Minnesota Twin Cities fifth. Andrew Williams from Clemson. Christian Hill, Mount St. Mary's. Athena LeClaire, St. Clair College. Muhammad Ali from Ball State. And your Sprint Race 1 winner, Ted Burns, will complete the top 10 for the starting grid. And I do want to give a shout out to John Price. I think I saw him running last at the very end of lap 1 in sprint race number 1, and look at that. He was able to work his way all the way up to 10th position to secure pole for sprint race number 2. So great job by John, but we are ready to go for sprint race number 2. The drivers are all in the grid. We are ready to go. Barney's got the green flag in hand, and it is green flag racing here at Watkins Glen. Once again, both the UT Arlington cars get off to a great start, but that Ball State machine just behind them is looming ever so closer as they're going to pull out to a little bit of a gap over IUPUI, that 37 of Cohen Evans. Nick Daly able to get out to a lead as John Price relegated to playing defense now for his teammate against Cale Davidson, still running in that third position as he did not have a very good finish to sprint race number 1 after being involved in that incident. But he's going to look to the inside underneath John Price. He is now side by side with that machine as they come down the back straightaway. It's single file all through the field, but not for long. You can see the weaving left, right by these drivers to try and get a move and get something started into turn 5 as we are side by side for more than a few positions going into turn 5. But Nick Daly will retain the lead through about the first half of the first lap as Cale Davidson is still trying to go to work on John Price. He's going to be on the outside of the entrance to the boot and will actually complete that pass around the outside. And John Price going to try and not concede the inside, going to take the defensive line, overshoots the corner just a hair. That's going to let Cohen Evans through as well as Lucas Santos.
And going down into the third sector, it is Texas at Arlington and then Ball State. A couple schools, Texas at Arlington, trying to continue that defense of the University of Minnesota. And Santos going to hang it tough on the outside. Can he break late enough? Yeah, there it is. Texas at Arlington trying to get back up to the IUPUI contact. Lucas Santos is around. He'll get that car going. And looks like minimal damage maybe, but very unfortunate there. Not what you want for those drivers and not what Texas at Arlington needed at that point. The whole scoring tower is yellow and orange as these drivers try to continue fighting for position, getting as much as they can before we get to the middle stage of this race. And this is the time to do it. This is cold tires where they are not very worn. and they're not overheated like they will be in 5 or 6 laps. You can see to the inside of St. Clair College is James Madison University. Matt Stowecki in that 62 machine, a staple of Season 7 here in Formula College. He's going to try and make it work. A late block from the 61 car. That'll leave the door open, but it's the long way around for Penn College of Technology in that 22 car without a drafting buddy as well, we might add. Back down into turn 5, that long sweeping bowl. Can the 17 car complete that pass? I tell you what, Zach, look who's waiting for this. IUPUI and Cohen Evans and Texas at Arlington is P4 waiting to make the most of this opportunity.
What's happened to Ted Burns? He's a lap down at the bottom of the scoring ticker.
Ted Burns is showing a lap down at the bottom of the ticker, so maybe a late out of the pits or did not survive the first lap. We can look into it. But down into the third sector, you can see, in fact, Ted Burns looks like we can find a replay of him. But yeah, it looks like not a lot of fortune for that Wisconsin car. Starting from the pits, maybe a little bit late to get back to the race.
Oh, so that there's a possibility that he could have been given a pit start penalty as a result of the contact at the end of sprint race number 1 by the stewards, but we can confirm that in just a few seconds. But for the time being, we're going to refocus on the action on track. Cohen Evans has now made his way up into the second position, but not for long, says Cale Davidson, as he's going to try and look to the other side of that beautiful gold and black IUPUI machine. Can't get the move to stick into turn 1, but the long climb up the S's and that long back straightaway is waiting for both of these drivers, as it looks like Davidson has already pulled alongside Evans. Had to let off the gas maybe a little bit right there, but you can see ever so slowly creeping back up towards the back bumper of that IUPUI machine. It's now Davidson to the outside, and he's got John Price in tow. These 4 drivers going at it for the lead. Daly has checked out to a little bit of a lead, actually one of the biggest leads we've seen all night, only about a half a second, but still that lead can collapse at any point.
Yeah, 100% can. Nothing is safe here, but these drivers able to go through and really compete pretty closely. You can see right there, not just no room for error again. We're going to sound like a broken record this evening as these drivers ball straight, going to get a little bit of run off the corner. IUPUI, but I'll tell you what, the battle is stacking up. So Nick Daly has checked out from this ever so slightly, and everybody else getting kind of bottled up behind. You can see Texas at Arlington trying to put their second car through, and you can see that second car of Ball State trying to sneak through as well. So a lot of these drivers are going to be impatient to get through this battle.
And that is the key to being successful here at Watkins Glen. You've got to have patience. You got to wait for the runs to come to you. You got to wait for the driver ahead of you to make a mistake, some sort of unforced error, to be able to set up that, to be able to get around them, but also to set up the moves that you want to make at least a few corners, possibly an entire sector in advance. The draft is the way to pass here at Watkins Glen, as Nick Daly took a very wide shortcut. Not really a shortcut, but a very wide exit off of turn 1 there. He's going to rack up a track limits warning from race control. But yeah, these drivers are going at it. There's a lot going on track. Is actually it's so hard to commentate because it's side by side and then single file and then side by side again. There's so much going on as we've got a great clump of 4 cars. That's Muhammad Alif trying to work his way back up through the field. He's up into the 4th position battling John Price, as that's Christian Hill and Andrew Williams, 2 technical teammates from Orange Wheel Racing behind them, Mount St. Mary's and Clemson University. But we're focusing on this battle just ahead of them, Ball State versus UT Arlington, as that's Cohen Evans, who has gone into the wall. That IUPUI machine got a little bit of the grass coming into the boot, and that car got sucked into the wall as we are 3 wide for the 6th position. That's Hill, Alif, and I believe John Price, the 4th position, sorry, John Price. 3 wide for a second there, coming through the toe of the boot, now through the heel. This is great action that we're seeing on camera right now.
Yeah, it is. Christian Hill around the outside. He's going to try and make it stick, but nothing doing there. Over a second maintained the lead. Davidson has his sights. Cohen Evans also, and John Price continues to look to make a move. Not sure if there was a little bit of contact there from second place on the exit of the corner, but John Price right now for Texas at Arlington. Best thing that a 0-10 car can do is keep the draft, keep in the corner, and keep driving away from that 12 machine. But these drivers, again, lap 5 or so, Zach, they've agreed to settle out, and then they're going to go through and surely compete these last 3 or 4 laps. But you know what? They might not even wait, because here comes that 12 car. He's going to look. When does he pull out? A little bit early in my opinion, but not going to be slowed down. He's got the opportunity to run out, but that 10 car with the draft, he will be able to make it through and down. And does he defend down to the inside? No, not quite, but will leave just enough space for that 12 car. Again, those tires doing as much work as they can on that racing surface. And it looks like clear for now is Texas at Arlington.
Yep, single file right now through about the first 10 or 12 cars. Look at that lead that Nick Daly has on the left side of your screen, 1.6 seconds. That is the biggest lead we've seen all day. Cale Davidson couldn't really do much trying to get behind Daly. He guess he lost the draft. So it's going to take a mistake from Daly or Davidson, Evans, and Price all working together, where really that entire clump of cars from second down to 7th, Davidson, Evans, Price, Alif, Hill, Williams, all working together to catch that lead if they want a shot at winning this race. And that is Ted Burns going very wide through the heel of the boot on exit. He's going to try and go to work on Andrew Burrell. That pit start from Ted Burns, actually we did get confirmation from the stewards that was a voluntary pit start. So I guess maybe Ted thought that there was going to be some carnage in turn 1 that he didn't want to be a part of, so he elected to start from the pits. But he is going to try and work his way back up to the front of the field. Still yet to crack the top 10, as we've just passed the halfway point of this race, working on lap 6 of 12 in this second sprint race in our Finger Lakes Grand Prix. Here's John Price defending against Muhammad Alif. John Price is the sitting duck right here, as Alif, looking out of his back bumper, is going to go to the outside. He's going to have the draft going down the back straightaway. That's Cohen Evans and Alif's teammate Davidson side by side just ahead of them. And this is going to be interesting going into the corner, as it looks like that battle up ahead has settled itself out. But John Price still holding the fort down against Alif, and that has got to be one of the most intimidating cars you could see in your rearview mirror. That juggernaut, Muhammad Alif, trying to get around you.
I think the defense from the 10 car is what stands out to me. There's been a couple times that I thought it might be a 50-50 ball, so to speak, but John has done a really good job of keeping his mid-corner and apex speed up. He's also done a really good job of putting that car where it needs to be, and being just close enough to where it doesn't always make sense for a Leaf to go for a pass or go for a lunge. And I suspect as we get into the closing laps, if that pass isn't complete, it may come down to one of those more unorthodox attempts at a pass. But you can see right there, continuing action up and down the scoring tower. James Madison University is trying to do the same defense against the Penn College of Technology. That's Matt Stawecki, and can he make something work on the final corner? I don't think so. I think it's going to be Austin DeLong who is going to be the first one across the line from this group. This is for the 9th position. So Penn College of Technology, they'll run down a little bit. They'll try and defend, but where does Matt Stawecki want to go to? He'll choose the outside line. Can he carry the momentum around this corner and accelerate? He'll get a run off. Yes, I think James Madison, a really good run off that corner. We'll see if that car is clear by the time they get to the straightaway. Not sure if that's the case, but Ball State and IUPUI back at it as well. Our Texas at Arlington, boy, looks like a rerun every lap. Texas at Arlington and Ball State down, and then side by side is Cohen Evans again. Though these cars getting closer, and this pretty soon, Zach, I think is going to be a 4-car adventure.
Yeah, these 4 cars now 3 wide, actually, as Nick Daly just barely makes it 3 wide. Here's Cohen Evans falling into the clutches of Alif and Price, but we were 3 wide for a second there going into the entrance of the boot, and I thought that was going to get really sketchy there for a second, as Muhammad Alif is able to pick off both of those drivers. What a move from that Ball State machine. It is now Cale Davidson going to go on the defensive against UT Arlington, going to try and defend anybody from getting close to his teammate, Muhammad Alif. Alif must win this race and have Davidson DNF. And actually, oh my goodness, that's a lot of drivers around. That's Muhammad Alif involved. I believe John Price has been involved as well. Alif has no rear wing, but Price is able to get it rejoined. And a scary moment there for Ted Burns, who has just cracked his way into the top 10. He had to check up a ton coming off the corner because Price was rejoining the track. But we have to take a look at that incident again because a lot happened right there so quickly.
Yeah, coming out of the corner, a really strong block, I think, for this point in the race. But that 12 car did not want to get past. And then, again, you're bumper to bumper. There's no room to disagree on the braking point. And it looks like the car in front wanted to use the brake pedal first. Stewards immediately looking into this one, and they'll be busy for a while. You can see the 12 right here. Pretty tough right there. In fact, it looks like the 10 was on the brakes at an appropriate time, but maybe not as much brake pressure. That car did not decelerate as much as I would have expected. So anyways, I'm sure we'll hear more about that both in the interviews and in the Discord later on. But for right now, we are, Zach, 4 and 5 laps to go. Your leader, Nick Daly, loved that. He's out now to a 3-second gap, but we have for 10th position. You can see that is Muhammad Alif now trying to defend 10th position with no rear wing. We'll have to ask how that car is handling as we get on in the run. You can see right there, Matt Stowecki's going to follow him on the low line, trying to build momentum around the high line is the 22 machine, though I think he's going to be met with a road block. Alif here trying to get in. Yeah, that car definitely, Zach, down on straight line speed, and that is going to cause a gaggle for these cars behind him.
Yeah, and I think losing a wing component or some sort of structural component like that on the chassis is grounds for a meatball. So Alif will probably have to come into the pits within the next few laps and get that fixed. But it looks like he's going to try and stay out, as that's a big shunt from Nick Patinella, who went around coming out of the corner. And we talked about the off-cambered corner and how tricky it was. You have to be careful on the throttle. And it looks like that's exactly what happened to Patinella, as I think Alif is going to elect to stay out this time. He may not have a meatball from that damage, but it is certainly affecting his ability to stay fast at this track. Now riding on board with Jason Wallet in that 11th position, currently in a battle with Nick Stockner, as both of these are going to try to hunt down that blue Penn College of Technology car ahead of them to get in the last points paying position. Now, Nick Stockner has something in it because he's got a teammate right behind Jason Wallet. Now, you think those two are going to work together, but I know over at Clemson, it's all about bragging rights between those two. Which alumni can beat the other in the race, as now Burrell in that Clemson car takes it 3 wide, and we're going to stay that way going into turn 5. But Wallet does the smart thing and backs out just a little bit to focus on his exit to reintroduce himself in this battle, as Andrew Burrell, with an incredible move down the back straightaway, going to get a 2-for-1 into turn 5 right there. What a great move from that Clemson driver, as he's now going to set his sights on that 10th position to score some points here at Watkins Glen. Now Drew Williams looking to the inside of Christian Hill for the last battle. This is the battle for the last spot on the podium. We talked about how this race last season had some surprise podium finishers and some chaos, and I think we've already seen chaos, but we might see some surprise podium finishers in guys that we don't usually see finish on the podium. But these two drivers, Williams and Hill, in that technical alliance of Orange Wheel Racing, we know that they're teammates and rivals as well. So there's a lot on the line aside from just points and finishing position for those two drivers, as we're now looking at Ted Burns going to make a move on Athena Leclerc, waiting to make that move as late as possible. Almost had that front wing underneath the entire back of Leclerc's car. But Burns is going to back out of it going into turn 1, as both of those drivers go wide, leaving it everything on the line, as we're now working on lap 10. 3 laps to go in this sprint race, as Ted Burns gets a great launch out of turn 1. He is alongside Leclerc going down the back straightaway, or coming on the back straightaway from the last corner, turn 4 of the S's. Leclerc's got the momentum on the outside. Ted Burns has the speed on the inside. These two drivers should be side by side. No drafting help for either of them down the back straightaway. as you see a little hop from both of those drivers as they crest that little curb coming back onto the track from the bus stop, and Ted Burns is going to walk away with that position relatively easily, but he has got a 2.5 second gap up to Cohen Evans ahead, and 2.5 laps to do it to try to break into the top 5.
Yeah, these two drivers still competing. You mentioned it was all about bragging rights for these orange rimmers, and down into the third sector they go. This is going to be a good opportunity for Christian Hill to be light on the brakes. He's already there. Doesn't even have to be super late, but now he's got to clear the 23 car. Can he do it? He will do it, and Andrew Williams will wait maybe a lap or two to try and get that back. But yeah, these two have been swapping positions, going for it for quite some time, and trying to compete pretty closely as well. But yeah, I think right now this is where these guys really have a lot of heat in their tires, maybe too much, and are trying to put any air across the wings, the downforce components that they can, and also the tires. And you can see Ted Burns right there continuing to wheel that car. Let's not forget the pit start for that Wisconsin team up to P6 currently. Not sure if P5 is within reach at this time. 2 laps to go in this one, but yeah, on board with Christian Hill right here. The pass almost completed, but side by side they go down into the long straightaway. No drafting advantage, Zach, when we are side by side. Christian Hill has decided he wants to have a shot. How will the 23 defend?
Looks like the 23 is going to take that inside line. This is Clemson on Mount St. Mary's action, as Williams is going to have the inside line going into the carousel, turn 5, as Hill's going to lose out on a little bit. He slid the car just a little too much through the center of the corner. He's going to lose out on that position, as we now look at Athena Leclerc, who will not go gentle into that good night against Ted Burns. She is all over his back bumper, down the chute and into the boot. Hey, that rhymed. Going into the toe now, we're gonna see if Leclerc can maybe mount an attack on Ted Burns to try and reclaim that 6th position. But looking through the field, I'm seeing a couple of orange numbers. I'm seeing Stockner, Burrell, and Wallet still going at it. There's battle between Ted Burns and Athena Leclerc, as well as Williams versus Hill. Now looking at John Price making the move on, this is Matt Stawecki making the move on John Price. This is UT Arlington versus James Madison University. As these two are battling for that 7th position on track. Austin DeLong, the last car in the point scoring position, as the leaders have taken the white flag one more time around for these drivers at Watkins Glen in our Finger Lakes Grand Prix. Riding on board with Andrew Williams for a second there, but nothing in front of him, as he's got a rear view mirror full of Christian Hill right now. Looking up towards the front, Nick Daly, 5.5 second lead over Cale Davidson, who has a 3.3 second lead over these two drivers. Right here on your screen, there's Christian Hill with his front wing all up the business of Drew Williams coming out of the final S for the last time. It's Christian Hill to the outside. Look at that. No room given between the two drivers. It's a game of inches and perfection as they come down the back straightaway. Christian Hill is going to have the momentum going into the carousel, but he is on that high line, and he slides it just a little bit too much. Can't quite get the power down out of the corner exit as he's going to slide in behind Williams. He's got a couple more chances to make this happen. This is the battle for the last podium position. This is for all the beans between these two drivers. There's bragging rights on the line as well. Is Williams not going to make a defensive move? Christian Hill not producing an attack into the toe. Up the hill one more time through the boot, heading towards the heel there. You can see Cale Davidson going now into the heel of the boot. Christian Hill not going to make an attack as well on Drew Williams. And in fact, Williams is going to have the much better corner. He's going to pull out to a couple car length lead, but all eyes are on Nick Daly, who started from the front row, overtook his teammate John Price to get back into the lead and has not looked back since. What a dominant performance, and what a lead for Nick Daly as he will secure sprint race number 2, the victory for a Formula C Finger Lakes Grand Prix. And looking back at the battle for the 3rd podium position, it's Drew Williams across the line by just over a car length over Christian Hill, and now here's John Price looking at Matt Stawecki, and it looks like Stawecki will secure that 8th position as Austin DeLong now locked in a battle for the final points-paying position. He will successfully defend that against Andrew Burrell and Jason Wallet. Wow, what a race.
A race it was. I think that Nick Daly probably needs to send a nice card to his teammate John Price, who occupied the remaining 4 cars of that top 5 for 4 or 5 laps at least, and then a little bit of an excitement thereafter. But wow, certainly up and down the field for the final podium position and the final points position, and then these drivers able to go through and have bragging rights up and down the scoring pylon. But what a race, certainly. Even Athena Leclerc, Matt Stawecki, and James Madison University coming back against John Price. We know he's got that pace. Yeah, we could say what a race all night long. Probably about both of those heats and just about every lap of that second heat, Zach. But how delightful was it to hang out and observe that?
That was a ton of fun to watch. It was certainly a unique style of racing that Watkins Glen presents so heavy on the draft. As it looks like Williams gonna try to do some donuts, but backs it into the fence. Sorry for showing that on broadcast, Drew. That was interesting, but yeah, it was great racing all the way around. Didn't look like any one driver could really clear any other unless the draft behind was broken. We saw some great racing side by side for a considerable portion of the field for most of that race. Even right up until the line, these drivers were side by side battling for those positions every last little point possible. Before we get into our interviews, Josh, I believe we are going to run through our finishing order for sprint race number 2.
Yeah, it looks like Nick Daly, Texas at Arlington, is going to be your race winner of heat number 2. Ball State's Cale Davidson and Clemson's Andrew Williams finish out the podium. Mount St. Mary's Christian Hill and IUPUI's Cohen Evans finish the top 5. Ted Burns started from the pits to make it up to P6 in that Wisconsin machine. Athena Leclerc, 2 strong runs tonight for that St. Clair College, and Matt Stawecki from James Madison University. John Price had an exciting second heat for the Texas at Arlington crew, bringing it home P9. 10th place going to round out to Austin DeLong from the Penn College of Technology. Clemson University's Andrew Burrell going to be 11th. 12th place belongs to Drexel University's Jason Wallet. Nick Stockner from Clemson University will be P13, followed in 14th by R. Muhammad Alif from Ball State University after he completed the latter half of that race with no rear wing. Dan Banner from St. Clair College going to be 15th, and Minnesota's Lucas Santos, P16. Robert Morris University and P17 through Nicholas Patinella, we saw in the first race, and then Drexel University through Alexander Diamond, P18. Beloit College and Ishan Bassan land P19 this evening, and Robert Morris University's Tyler Klingensmith going to round out that top 20. Finally, the College of San Mateo's Michael Tognati will be your 21st finisher tonight. And Zach, I think that concludes.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk to our podium finishers. We're going to kick it off with our 3rd place finisher, Drew Williams of Clemson University. Drew, you just got out of an F3 race that was over an hour long, jumped out of that seat into this F4 seat, and you were able to bring it home 3rd overall in sprint race number 2. How are you feeling?
Man, I am beat. That was I just had an ambitious schedule trying to do 2 hours of racing back to back, and I am totally cooked, but super thrilled with the finish. Didn't think we'd be able to battle that close and just have such a good run through. Yeah, I mean, both Glen races tonight were just phenomenal.
I think it was phenomenal to watch. Congrats on P3, Drew. But yeah, a physical night it was. But walk us through some of those battles. At one point, you had 4 cars in your mirror in the first heat trying to get through, and they really shuffled themselves around. But it seemed like the track was pretty competitive. It seemed like the cars had a lot of grip tonight.
Yeah, no, seemed like it was kind of cold. Cars were hooked up everywhere, so it was just a draft game. It was just playing. As something I guess I saw some of the other drivers struggle with. A Leaf couldn't get past John Darwin in the second race because he wasn't backing up the corner enough to slingshot around. It was a really unique style of driving tonight that I guess from my Cup background I kind of excel at.
Well, again, P3, Excel, you did. Drew, before we turn you loose, anybody that you want to say thank you to tonight?
I want to say thank you to Athena and Christian for giving me some. I mean, that is some of the best open wheel racing I have had in my iRacing career. That was just phenomenal. And of course, thank you Orange Wheel Racing and Clemson Esports for giving me the ride and helping me get on track every day.
Awesome. Well, congrats, Drew. P3 for you and Orange Wheel and for Clemson University tonight. Enjoy your evening. And yeah, Zach, really solid run from Drew Williams, who capitalized on some mid-race chaos in the second heat.
Oh, without a doubt. And I'm thinking back to my experience here last fall, where I did the exact same thing, taking advantage of the mid race and late race chaos to bring it home on the podium. That was my first podium, I believe. That was Drew's second podium this season overall. So congratulations to Drew on a race well run. And you heard once again the respect he had and the admiration for the other drivers on track. Said it was some of the most fun open wheel racing that he's had in recent memory. So that's a testament to the racecraft and the skill of the drivers in this league, that they're able to race so close and so hard, and still race cleanly and respectfully, and most importantly, have a ton of fun. And I
Yeah.
believe that brings it to time to interview our runner-up finisher, Cale Davison of Ball State University, once again on the podium here in Formula C. Congratulations, first of all, but also we've talked about the unique style of racing here. Drew talked about it in his interview. Take us through your strategy for this race and trying to work your way up through the field and complete those passes.
So when it kind of comes to passing on this track, it's definitely drafting plays a big role. And I got lucky with the invert on the second race because of kind of what happened in the first race. But kind of the drafting plays such a big part of it because going in the first heat, even though I was running fourth place, like I was just being calm and collected the whole time. So even though I wasn't pushing it into every corner, I was still getting a draft off them. So that's how I was able to stay up with that first group of four. And then that whole kind of thing happened. But other than that, it's definitely just drafting and basically just staying like within about half a second of the car in front of you. And then it's a pretty good race from there.
Yeah, Kale, congrats on the second part of the podium for yourself and for Ball State. How did your race mindset change midway through? There's a lot of chaos, and it involved your wingless teammate, our Muhammad Alif. There, how did that change your outlook on the second half of the second heat?
Um, so at that point, I was kind of more focused on where Cohen Evans was behind me at that point, and I had maybe about like a second gap going into that. And so I was more focused on, okay, I've built a little bit of a gap now, so then I was just basically going lap by lap, trying to hit every mark so I can just pull away since he was kind of out of that draft. And then kind of shortly after that, I just kind of saw the relative times drop, and then I heard Athena say that a Leaf had no rear wing. So I didn't know too much what happened there, but definitely kind of feel bad for him. But we still both he got P1 in student for the first race, and I got P1 in student for the second race. So we're both very happy with that.
Yeah, 100%. And a result well earned. Before we send you on your way, it wouldn't be a CIL chat if we didn't let you have a little shout out at the end.
Yeah, I want to shout out first off both my parents, my mom and my dad. I want to shout out my girlfriend, and then I also want to shout out Alif, who's sitting right next to me. It's weird that I'm on the side of this and he's not. We switched up a little bit today. But then basically just a shout out to our head of our esports program, Dan Marino, for making this all possible.
Awesome. Well, we are also grateful that he made it possible, and you guys are so exciting to watch out on track. Congrats, Kale, on the P2, and a great night.
Thank you.
Yeah, Zach Kale Davidson. You heard him. He wasn't even focused on the big events. He was just thinking through the race, trying to manage the gaps and make sure he had a car to get to the end.
And the mentality of a great teammate as well. You heard him talk about how he was focused on a Leaf getting the win in the first race, and he got the win in the second race. This is going to be a huge points haul for Ball State University, as I think it's safe to say that they essentially have one hand on the Collegiate Constructors Championship trophy on the student end. So, of course, stay tuned to our social medias. We will let you know if they have done enough to clinch the title. I know our bean counters are hard at work behind the scenes running those numbers. But pay attention, because we will make that announcement this week if they are the winners. But I believe that is going to bring us up to the man of the hour. The University of Texas Arlington's Nick Daly got the job done in sprint race number 2. Nick, congratulations on a great sprint race. We saw you win it in dominant fashion. Over 5 seconds was the gap from you back to Cale Davidson in P2. What do you think helped you the most in building that big of a lead, where you kind of just checked out and never really looked back?
Yeah, man, what an awesome couple of races here. Yeah, I mean, even though race one ended the way it did, I mean, it was still a blast. So much fun to race up there with Ted. Yeah, coming up there on one of those last corners, he just didn't expect me to keep my front wheel up in there. So, you know, it happens. It's all good. But yeah, race two, it kind of worked out because me and John were on the front row, so we had two UTA cars there, which was pretty cool. Um, but yeah, so got a clean start. Then uh, let's see. So yeah, then Kale and Cohen kind of started battling a little bit, and then that allowed me to start pulling a little bit of a gap. And then once I was able to break the draft, then I could start pulling away.
Yeah, Nick, the second race was a little bit more clean air for you. We know these cars have a unique setup tonight. How did your car handle differently in the dirty air versus the clean air out front?
Um, it wasn't too different. Usually, like when you're following someone, you're braking just a little bit earlier, because there's no point in braking late. So it's easier to manage the front tires and keep them in check. And then yeah, whenever you're out in clean air, you can always just brake late, and you don't have to worry about any aero wash or anything. The setup was working really well in this session. So yeah, I was happy with it.
Wow, that makes plenty of sense. Congratulations on the top stop of the podium tonight. And is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, a huge shout out to my buddies Cole and Mark for watching. Shout out to University of Texas at Arlington and the UTA racing team. Shout out to you guys for putting on a great league. And thank you to all the viewers for watching.
Yeah, thank you for putting on a show up front. Nick, was exciting 2 heats. Congratulations again to you and Texas at Arlington.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And yeah, man, what a happy camper you would be if you finished in front of that one, Zach. But we're used to a lot of hot sound bites, especially from the Cup side. But perhaps refreshing to hear just how much fun these drivers are having, and how much fun it is to watch them.
Oh, without a doubt. These drivers love racing with each other. They love these cars. They love these tracks. They love getting out there and being able to battle with each other for an hour. And they have so much respect for each other, and that shows in how they treat each other, how they interact with each other, and how they race most especially. And that means they're able to put on a good show for all of us that are watching as well.
Transitioning to the booth.
Yeah, I agree, and super exciting. So it's gonna be really fun when we do this again for the championship, Zach, in 2 weeks' time. Where are we going for that one?
So we will wrap up our Formula C season in 2 weeks at Interlagos in Brazil for our Brazilian Grand Prix. So that will be at the same time, not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. Be sure to tune in for that championship race. But looking ahead even closer to next Monday night, our College Cup Series returns to playoff action at Michigan International Speedway, the fastest track on our Cup calendar this season. Tim Robb dominated a time-shortened Queen City 250 last night and became the first playoff driver to punch his ticket to Homestead in 3 weeks' time to go racing for a championship. So tune in Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern to see which playoff driver will join Robb as the next member of the championship four. And I believe that will do it for us tonight. So on behalf of the CIL, myself, co-commentator Josh, producer Matt, and the rest of us here at the CIL, we want to congratulate all of our podium finishers and our winners, and thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you soon, and until next time, stay fast.